Can you recognize your member of parliament? No? Well, before you do, let's rewind to the very beginning of the longest running political drama in town, the 8th Parliament of Ghana, a saga of twists, turns, and fistfights. It all kicked off with a bang, ballot paper snatching, chewing, and yes, sprinting. Who needs action movies when we have got parliament? The 2020 election produced a hung parliament, meaning no majority easy way out. So when the controversial e-levy came up, let's just say tensions hit boiling point, literally. The e-levy vote saw Ahanta West MP Alexander Kodjo wheeled in by ambulance. Nanton MP Hadi Tuferi sped into Parliament despite a car accident to vote on 3 revenue bills. You would think he was auditioning for the Fast and Furious spin-off. Tamale South MP Haruna Idrisu raised the stakes, invoking Article 97 to throw a curveball attempting to formalize and establish the NDC as the majority. The plot thickens.
I am very certain that Parliament and Ghana will go through a major constitutional test. And that constitutional test is that the NDC minority must become the majority from Wednesday next week.
Former Speaker Michael Quay had set a precedent. Speaker Alban Bagbin followed suit, declaring the seats of some MPs vacant for switching political tickets.
How does an MP operate both as an elected independent MP and at the same time an MPP MP if he should win the election? This lacuna of a ridiculous situation is not what is anticipated under the 1992 Constitution. In the circumstances, Parliament it is determined that the conduct of Honorable Andrew Amuaku Esiama amounts to vacating his seat in Parliament.
These MPs cannot be allowed by law and my good self to continue to pretend to be representing people that they don't believe in.
But hold on, the majority wasn't going down without a fight.
The matter that came before us has interpretation reliefs, and that you do not have the power to interpret the Constitution, and that your duty is to enforce. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, you are not listening to me.
Mr. Speaker, may I finish with respect?
All what you said are wrong, so I cannot continue to allow you to keep on misleading the House.
They rushed the Supreme Court to stay Bagwin's decision, and if you thought MPs couldn't be punctual, you would be wrong. On October 22nd, many MPs got up early, showing up as early as 6 a.m. just to grab the coveted majority spot in the chamber.
I don't want to glorify that kind of allegation. I came here as part of my duties. It's not only these days or today that I come to work early. Every time I come to work early.
First on the scene, in Sawam Adoajiri MP Frank Anodompre. But Adaklu MP Kwame Agboja wasn't having any of that.
Why is Anodompre already sitting in there? When we were told that the room opens at 8 o'clock, he's already sitting in there. So they are the ones who are going to cause the fight.
Both sides fought for control at the chamber like it was the last jollof at a party. In this showdown, the MPP eventually walked out, leaving the NDC to celebrate in style. No blows exchanged this time, just some good old-fashioned jeers and victory songs.
We are going to the Ghana.
So, can you identify your MP now? If not, just tune in to the next episode. Who knows what drama awaits Ghana's political theatre? GHOne News.
So clearly the final episode is what would also lead to the inauguration of the 9th Parliament, and what better place than here to get all the information and updates as and when they do pour in. But let me talk to you about Minority Leader Dr. Kasila Forsen, because in delivering his final address on the floor of the House for the session, he noted, among others, that, well, the minority met the expectations of the Ghanaian people.
Honorable Speaker, the past 8 years have been tough for all of us. A lesson on how not to govern a country, and in fact, a lesson on how not to run an economy. In the end, the crushing defeat the NPP suffered in the just ended elections is a clear message from Ghanaians that they will not tolerate any such level of poor governance and mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, it is deeply concerning that those who oversaw such disastrous performance in government would have the audacity to adorn themselves with accolades to the chagrin of the people of Ghana. Right Honorable Speaker, I was surprised to see some of them being awarded with highest state honors. Right Honorable Speaker, at the personal level, I have had to pay a heavy price for my stance against the government mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, my recent prosecution, or call it persecution, by the Attorney General over frivolous and trumped-up charges was calculated to silence, intimidate, and completely extinguish a known dissenting voice. Right Honorable Speaker, my crime, Mr. Speaker, was that I sounded alarm bells on an economy that was being mismanaged and ruined by an act and omissions of a select few in government. The fact that my prosecution began in the wake of the tussle over e-levy should not be lost on anyone, that I became an instant target for the regime. Mr. Speaker, I was charged on the Christmas Eve, a few days after the rejection of the e-levy and the 2022 budget. Right Honorable Speaker, from that point, the Attorney General and the Minister responsible for Justice, Godfred Yabu-Adame, in whom the prosecutorial powers of the state is vested, was determined to deploy all crude tactics, including the use of subterfuge, to achieve his ends of malicious prosecution just to satisfy the regime. Mr. Speaker, the whole world witnessed how a supposed Minister of Justice set out to coach, Kodjo, and coerce another accused person standing trial together with me to falsify his testimony and skew it in such a manner as to enable him to procure a conviction at all costs against an innocent person. In the process, Mr. Speaker, Godfred Yabu-Adame, who is the principal legal officer of state, engaged in crimes such as witness tampering, conspiracy against accused person, fabrication of evidence to pervert the course of justice, and professional misconduct, contrary to the ethics of the very legal profession he heads. I believe this has been the story for many Ghanaians during this period. Right Honorable Speaker, never in the history of our nation have we witnessed this level of gross professional misconduct on the part of no less a person than the Attorney General and the Minister responsible for justice, who is the leader of the bar and bears a high responsibility to adhere to the rules of ethics of the legal profession. Mr. Speaker, I'm not against prosecution of wrongdoing. Whilst our democracy is founded on the rule of law and holding public officers accountable, I pray that never again should any of our citizens become a victim of this level of injustice and abuse of prosecutorial powers that I was subjected to. Right Honorable Speaker, despite the painful experience, I count it as part of the hazards of politics and service to the people of Ghana.
Well, so you have the minority leader, soon to be majority leader in the 9th Parliament. But let's talk about the majority leader in the current Parliament, Alexander Kwamena Afenyo-Markin. Now, he has accused his colleagues in the minority of frustrating government business in the 8th Parliament. He further cautioned the incoming majority and the NDC administration to remember their promises to Ghanaians.
Mr. Speaker, the minority were such a tough, stubborn, difficult side. Mr. Speaker, you could never have an agreement with them. because they were smelling power. And I understand, rightly so. The number of government business I would have loved to complete for political expediency and perhaps for purposes of principle, I did not get the support from my respected colleague. It is on this note that I condemn in no uncertain terms the establishment of a so-called committee called ORA. I hold the humble view that it is a needless committee. It has no constitutional backing, and this committee is only in for personal vendetta. If we allow this committee to continue with its so-called wild goose chase, it will disturb the governance of this country. We don't need any so-called ORA. We have institutions of state. However unhappy we may be with their work, we must support them to do their work. We don't want people to be chasing people into people's houses, going into people's bedrooms, thinking that their government is in office, so they should chase people for so-called ill-gotten wealth. Let's allow Mr. Speaker, they should expect more from tomorrow. This is what, you can't take it. I've too spoke. Then you've been putting up my mic, disrupting me. I will speak. Yes, it will be longer than this. Mr. Speaker, Ghana has come of age. And I expect my friends in the NDC to know that it is not a populist agenda that makes a nation strong. It is due process of law that makes a nation strong. I regret that members of this hallowed chamber are advocates of this illegal, unconstitutional so-called body called ORA. Mr. Speaker, let me remind my colleagues that the incoming minority caucus has a mantra, and I will disclose the mantra to them: touch one, touch all. We are not going to allow you to use unconstitutional means to shut us up.
So that's Alexander Kwabena Fenyo Markin, Majority Leader of the 8th Parliament, which expires at midnight. Now, Speaker of the House, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, expressed satisfaction with the work of the 8th Parliament, while urging the 9th Parliament to prioritize some 8 bills which could not be completed in the 8th Parliament.
The resilience of our democratic architecture was measured. However, every challenge was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to strengthen our democratic processes. Through it all, we have demonstrated that dialogue and mutual respect are indispensable to nation building. And I will refer all of you to a very well written and delivered speech by Her Majesty the King Otumfuo Osei Tutu II to the University of Professional Studies, Accra, as to the process to building a nation. I've told the clerk's office to make copies available to each and every member of Parliament. Honorable members, valedictory speeches are meant to serve as farewell communication. Hence, I bid this 8th Parliament and all its players farewell. I appeal to the incoming 9th Parliament to build on the foundations we have laid let us ensure the continuity of reforms and
Right, so let's get a conversation ongoing on the development here, talking about the expiration of the 8th Parliament. Ni Amate is a political scientist, and he's joining me via Zoom for a conversation on this. Ni, thank you so much for joining me. So, at the initial stages, a lot of people were excited because of the numbers game in the 8th Parliament. Would you say Ghanaians have really benefited from the 8th Parliament?
Well, thank you for having me. I must say that it started well, and we all expected the best, especially when this was 137 apiece and just one independent. And we knew we were going to have fun. I have fun in the sense that we're going to have us duly represented. If you remember, it was a parliament which had an increase in women, and so you have 40 women out of the 275, which was an increase. And then we had an independent speaker who had no ties with the ruling party. Again, it was a legislative achievement because they passed over 1,000 bills, and one of which is the Right to Information Act and the National Identification Authority Act. And we all, very happy with that. We also had this international diplomacy because Parliament also ratified the treaties, like such treaties as African Free Trade Area, if you remember. And then, I don't know if you heard this, but in 2022, Parliament was described as the best open parliament in Africa, 2022. So we had quite some good times, and we thought that was great. But of course, there were certain challenges, certain weaknesses. If you allow me, there was a it was overly partisan, because it led to many bills. It hindered the passage of many important laws. Also, Parliament not provided adequate oversight of the executive, and so you had allegations of corruption and allegations of mismanagement. Also, there were fights, physical fights. You remember the West GHOne situation where the woman who won, Alassane, was referred to as Black Woman, and then a parliamentarian was slapped. If you remember, Sami Jemfi blasted the speaker and Haruna Idrisu, and nothing happened. You had a situation where people like Black Rasta, Kofi Wayo, etc., had to take a very big. They really, blasted them as well, and it didn't go down well. With some of them were forced to, and then Professor Dodu, referred to them as operating from a point of view of ignorance. I think some of these things, and then some of them are also self-inflicted, where you had parliamentarians taking double salaries. When you have a parliamentarian who is acting as a minister, they, instead of taking the difference between the ministerial position and then the parliamentary position, they took both salaries, and that was not good enough. It didn't tell a good story about them. And then they did not ensure transparency and accountability. Look, if you have a situation where the Minister for Finance can use this position to take money for the cathedral without passing it through Parliament, that's bad enough. Very, very bad enough. And then the man, Oseche Mensah and Haruna Idrisu were taken off, cannot be said to be a good style at all. Look, there's a situation where if you don't want somebody, at least there's a way to appreciate a person and let a person go. The tree proverb says, or something. I've forgotten the proverb. But the whole idea then is the fact that you have a situation where, getting to the end of time, the speaker then had to get rid of some members of parliament because they were not they were standing as independent candidates in the yet to come election at the time. But I mean, when they couldn't see how things were to be resolved, of course, Apenyo Maki went to the Supreme Court. Again, I saw the Speaker not accepting the verdict from the Supreme Court, and I thought that was not good enough, because the young ones coming and those who are learning from the Speaker of Parliament and Parliament, and then thinking that is there a situation where you can disrespect the rulings of the Supreme Court, and that again is not good enough. Then Parliament could not control the borrowing habits of the government, the borrowing habits of the executive. That is a very bad blot on the persona of Parliament, and they couldn't, in effect, keep the executive in check.
Right, but in all of this, the majority draws the conclusion that the minority frustrated government business in this 8th Parliament. Did you see that also?
Can you say that again, please?
So the majority is accusing the minority of frustrating government business in Parliament, in this Parliament. Did you see that reflect?
No, but if you say that, then how were they able to pass the over 1,000 bills? You know, the minority, I think, and Aruna supported the government so well. I think the minority stood up their grounds when things started going haywire. You remember when a very sick and stroke-stricken member of Parliament had to be driven down in an ambulance to Parliament just to pass the e-levy, and it tells you the human side that was not considered. We became inhumane with our behavior. Yeah. So I think the minority played its role, but and then it was split down to the middle, except that you have a situation where there's an independent candidate. Look, there are situations in Canada and other countries where the split is down to the middle, equal numbers apiece, and yet they do business. It is at that point that they get to know your strengths. You're being diplomatic, trying to manage people to join you to push across a certain policy, etc. But here you have a situation where it was a bad blood, and I don't blame this on anybody. I blame it on the parliamentarians themselves. But right from inception, to select a speaker was a fight. To do some other things, you had fights all over the place. West Wellborn, etc. Right. Yeah. Very well. Lee, thank you so much. And I'm sure that from now till tomorrow, there's so much to talk about, but grateful for your time this evening. That's Ni Amate. He's a political scientist speaking to us on the 8th Parliament, the performance of the 8th Parliament. Now, Ghana's commitment to democratic principles shone brightly today as outgoing President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo graciously welcomed President-elect GHOne Mahama to the Jubilee House. Now, this momentous occasion, reminiscent of the seamless 2017 transition, underscores the resilience of Ghana's Fourth Republic and its dedication to peaceful governance. So, with warm smiles and a shared vision for national progress, the leaders emphasized unity, signaling hope for a collaborative future amidst current challenges. Here's Abdul Hanan Adam with the details from the Jubilee House.
History repeats itself at the Jubilee House as outgoing President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo once again welcomes President-elect John Dramani Mahama and Vice President-elect Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman to the presidency.
So you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Madam Vice President-elect, you're welcome, and the rest of it, man. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. The meeting marks a significant moment of unity and collaboration in Ghana's democratic journey, particularly in the Fourth Republic. The outgoing president, Nana Akufo-Addo, expressed confidence in a smooth handover, indicating that his administration is fully committed to a seamless transition.
The whole process of the transition is working according to the letter and spirit of the law, and that we're now ready for your administration to take over the affairs of the country. So I'm very happy to see you, and I think the work of the transition has now virtually been completed. They've had their final meeting. That's the information that I've had. I believe I'm right in saying that. Yeah. And then all the other outstanding matters of the transition, Article 71, office holders, all these are now going to be dealt with by the Parliament. I've written to them my comments on the proposals that the Emoluments Committee sent to me. So we're in shape. Yeah. The country is waiting for you as from tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you're welcome.
In response, President-elect John Dramani Mahama expressed gratitude for the gesture, highlighting the significance of such collaborative transitions in fostering national unity.
It's a privilege to be here with you on the day before we have the inauguration. I want to thank you and your side of the transition team, Chief of Staff, for what has been a cordial and smooth transition. And we do think that we are quite ready, with the information we have to start to work immediately after we finish the inauguration tomorrow. It is conventional to meet on the last day and as it were, take over, the premises. We want to thank you for what has been a smooth transition, and you can count on us, even in government, that will continue the spirit of cooperation.
However, this is not the first time a transition has happened between the two. In January 2017, John Mahama, after serving a term, handed over power to President Akufo-Addo in upholding the democratic ideals Ghana is celebrated for.
I have said before that Ghana's success is all our success, and we need to work to ensure that government is a continuum and that we continue to build on whatever an outgoing government leaves and another government comes and takes over and builds on it. Governments will come and go, but Ghana must continue to progress.
As Ghana prepares for the upcoming inauguration, this moment serves as a powerful reminder of the nation's democratic resilience and shared vision of its leaders. For GHOne News, Abdul Hanan Adam, Jubilee House.
Well, information coming in just now indicates that President-elect John Dramani Mahama has made some appointments, starting with Julius Debras as Chief of Staff, among others. We'll run you through the list shortly, but we do also know that tomorrow will be the investiture of John Dramani Mahama as President of the Republic of Ghana, and there's been a lot of security arrangements that have been put in place, including some roadblocks to ensure that access to and from the Independence Square, the Black Star Square, is controlled. Well, let's speak to security analyst Dr. Adam Bona on the back of this particular development. Doc, thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you. I think it's the first time you're speaking in 2025, so Happy New Year to you.
Many happy returns.
Great. So, Doc, looking at an event like what we are having tomorrow, we've been told that we are expecting a number of head of states, among others. Really, what is your assessment of what you have seen in terms of security?
Well, my assessment of what I've seen, yesterday I visited the grounds to observe what was taking place in the security arrangements, and the last few weeks I have, engaged those who are supposed to be putting in place the security arrangements, and so I am privy to what is going on there. But yesterday when I got there, I think I was quite impressed with regards to the arrangements. And when you enter the forecourt, when you enter into the Independence Square, you will notice that there are different type of seating arrangement. You have, when you enter, the seats you are facing, usually the colors are black. Those ones are reserved, per what I know, reserved for those with accreditation. That's foreign dignitaries who are coming in the diplomatic community, our own, dignitaries who are supposed to be given accreditation here and there. They are supposed to be occupying the black seats that are facing the entrance to the Independence Square. Then you have the red seats on the sides. Those ones are supposed to be occupied by every other person who is not holding an accreditation, or who is holding not holding an accreditation card. They can sit anywhere. So depending on what time you get there, you can sit. But I am also, I am aware that there will be a lot of plainclothes
security officers who, some of whom would be concealing weapons here and there to ensure that they are in plain clothes, mixed up with the people, ensuring that if anybody wanted to take advantage of, the event, that person can be neutralized quickly. All high-rise buildings, if you ask me, have also been taken care of, within the immediate vicinity. All high-rise buildings have been taken care of. And you would have foot patrols, you would have the police would have their presence there, largely, a lot of them, the military, so you have the special forces. And what I do know is that there's been ensuring that the K9s, the bomb squad or the explosive squad would come in, have been there to sniff around and ensure that they sniff around to make sure no one has probably put any IED or put in any explosive around the place, which could be used later. And so I must say I am quite impressed with the arrangement. And dignitaries, as of yesterday when I got there, dignitaries were, per what I knew, were landing, in their numbers. And H.E. John Dramani Mahama has visited almost every West African country and some African countries. Mm-hmm. And has invited a lot of our West African neighbors who are not happy with Nanado, because then Nanado went to the West snitching on them. So some of them are broken ranks with ECOWAS. So I think he's visited them to let them know that there is change of government, and therefore everybody must come around the ECOWAS to make sure that we are able to relate again as a people. So I must confess that security arrangement is very tight. It's not everything I can say. But anyone who is going there for the purposes of public education, if you intended to go and do anything nasty, there are, you have an outstation, monitoring team with some cameras that usually will look like your cameras that are panning and zooming in to make sure that the outstation surveillance team are picking every detail. So if you were sitting there and you thought you would take advantage, they would have spotted you and neutralized you. So if anyone had any ill intention, I think you must just forget about it, because they would find you out and they will neutralize you.
Right. But Doc, what really are some of the risks associated with high-profile events as what we have on our hands tomorrow?
Well, the risks of people who sometimes pickpockets. It ranges from pickpockets, the usual stealing of phones, the usual pickpocketing people, to people who might want to do damage or destabilize the event and cause a lot of mayhem. And so all those things have been put in place. I know the police, what do you call the PID, the Police Intelligence Directorate or Department, have put in place plain clothes. The military, MI, the military intelligence, the DI, Defense Intelligence, and all of the NIB, the National Security, all of them are on the ground ensuring. And so from this, I think it started about 2 days ago, personnel have been stationed there, and they are running a shift to ensure that all the areas that they have checked and ensure that, everything is clear. Eyes have been kept on this place for the last number of days. And so there are no go, but the risks, like you said, there won't be any gaps. The risks, you would have people trying to do a lot of, pickpocket. I would want to see, we are likely to see some pickpocket. And sometimes people, the party, NDC party supporters sometimes becoming overexcited and sometimes trying to do things that would not be right. And apart from that, people go in there early and not eating. So the St. John's ambulance should send a lot of men on the ground and a lot of emergency medication, because in this part of the world, as we know, around this time the weather is very hot. So people are likely to be there who could faint, who could probably pass out. We know even the president's bodyguard fainted, in an air-conditioned space. And so you can imagine when people get to these grounds wanting to be part of this inauguration. Some of them could get there very early as 4 a.m. Or could even sleep at the venue, because they are too excited and they want to be part of this. So those are some of the risks we should be, letting people be aware of.
Very well, Doc. And I'm sure same time tomorrow we'll have another conversation and see whether all the things that you identified were actually met. But we are grateful for your time this evening. That's Dr. Adam Bona, security analyst, speaking to us there. Well, ahead of President-elect GHOne Dramani Mahama's inauguration on Tuesday, January 7, at the Black Star Square, authorities have put in place strict security measures to ensure the event runs smoothly and safely. So the venue, we are told, will be divided into 3 main zones. Zone 1 for dignitaries, Zone 2 for public with large LED screens for viewing, and Zone 3 for accredited media personnel. So to maintain order, heavy security presence will also be deployed across the venue. Several roadblocks around the Black Star Square have been set up, including the 28th February Road, the Osu Cemetery traffic light, and Castle Road, and all of these will be closed on the day. Motorists are also urged to use alternative routes like Salem Avenue, Oxford Street, and Liberia Road. Designated parking areas will be available at the Independence Arch, State House forecourts, and Access Bank car park. Over 700 media personnel have been accredited for the event, which will also see the attendance of 10 heads of state, 2 vice presidents, and other international dignitaries. Well, so President-elect GHOne Dramani Mahama waiting for his inauguration tomorrow. But ahead of that, a statement has been released from his office, basically chronicling persons that he has appointed to various sectors in his governance. So it says that the President-elect, His Excellency GHOne Dramani Mahama, has made the following appointments to the office of the President. Top on the list, Julius Deborah, maintained as his Chief of Staff. Dr. Callistus Mahama, Executive Secretary to the President. Prosper Douglas Bani, Head of Interim Security Task Force. Dr. Valerie Sawyer, Senior Presidential Advisor on Governmental Affairs. Also has Augustus Gusitano, Presidential Advisor responsible for the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development. Marietta Ejewa Brew, Legal Counsel to the President. And then Honorable Felix Kwatiofosu, acting spokesperson to the President. And it says that these appointments take effect from tomorrow, Tuesday, January 7, 2025. And it's signed by Felix Kwatiofosu. His designation here is special aid. But from tomorrow, he'll be acting spokesperson to the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency GHOne Dramani Mahama. So from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. tomorrow, commuters in Accra's Central Business District will face significant traffic restrictions. Now, the measures are necessary to ensure security and smooth proceedings for the inauguration of GHOne Dramani Mahama and Vice President-elect Jane Nana Opoku Ajiman. Now, let's hear from the Director of Police Public Affairs, ACP Grace Ansah Kofi, as she outlines the security and traffic arrangements.
As part of the measures, there will be intermittent roadblocks, restrictions, and traffic diversions in some parts of Accra. Roads in the security operational perimeter would therefore be closed to both human and vehicular traffic from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, 7 January 2025. The specific routes which will be closed to the public are the 28th February Road from Customs Headquarters towards Castle Road Junction. Both sides of the road from the Osu Cemetery traffic light on the local street towards the AU roundabout. Starlet 91 Road from the Ministry's traffic light intersections towards the Accra Sports Stadium. Additionally, motorists are advised to take note of the following traffic diversions. Traffic from the 28th February road emanating from Laboni and Osu towards the Central Business District will be diverted onto the Salem Avenue traffic light at the Castle traffic light to link up with the Oxford Street. Traffic from John Evans at Mills High Street towards the Independence Square will be diverted to the Liberia Road at the Customs Headquarters traffic light to the National Theatre traffic light intersection. Motorists from Loco Street towards the Castle Road should use the Ajumakun and Oxford Streets. Traffic from the AU roundabout towards the Castle Road through the Usu Cemetery traffic light shall be diverted onto the Abdul Diop and Ken Hassan roads to link with the Abdul Nasser Gamer road in front of the Ghana Institute of Journalism. Residents within the security operational perimeter, invited dignitaries, motorists, pedestrians, and the general public are advised to use alternative routes, follow traffic directions.
All right, so let's take you live now to the grounds for tomorrow's inauguration of President-elect John Dramani Mahama. It's been work all day at the Black Star Square, and my colleague Abdul Hanan Adam is joining me from there. Hanan, really, talk to me about how the place is getting ready for the big day tomorrow.
Well, Joshua,
Well, we'll reconnect to Abdul Anan Adam at the Black Star Square, which is the venue for the inauguration of President-elect John Dramani Mahama. We want to see exactly how things are shaping out in that area, especially looking at the fact that, well, a lot of people in terms of party supporters who are excited about the inauguration would also be making their way, as you heard Dr. Adam Bona talk about, making their way so that they can be able to get a space. Because what we are told, according to organizers for the inauguration tomorrow, is that it can take about some 6,000 persons who are expected to be outside those who are accredited to do the job tomorrow. So yes, only 6,000 extra people can be accommodated at the Black Star Square. And so yes, it's on a first come first serve basis, and you'd expect that people who are enthusiastic about the NDC and also waiting to see this happen will make their way there. We'll connect with Abdul Hanan Adam shortly and get live feed from the Black Star Square a few hours till the inauguration of John Dramani Mahama. You're still watching News Tonight here on GHOne television. We'll speak to Abdul Hanan Adam after this break. Stay with us. Thank you so much for joining us and sticking and staying with us as well. Let's go back to the Black Star Square here in Accra, where Abdul Hanan Adam is still standing by to give us updates on what is happening there. Hanan, so talk to me. Earlier you were telling me exactly how the place is looking like.
Well, Joshua, like I indicated earlier, from the Osu 37 military cemetery heading towards the ministry's area has been blocked. So motorists who are traveling from that stretch would have to use the alternative route because the restrictions has already kicked in. And from what is happening here, it means that from now till the next day, which is going to be the 7th of January 2024, later in the evening, 6 p.m., that will be when traffic will be opened for motorists who are traveling or who will be using these particular areas. So while we arrive here, we notice that there's heavy presence of security. That security personnel who have been deployed here are divided into sections. We also have the state protocol who are in charge of the main center of attraction, which is going to be where the president-elect is going to be sworn in together with the vice president-elect. And from what is happening here, if you look at the other side, it's been barricaded all along. So this is the inner perimeter, and it means that those who don't have the requisite accreditation will not be in this particular enclave if you don't have any business. And as of now, sound is being worked on, or technical persons who are on the ground to ensure that the media have the best of sound. Cameramen have already mounted their cameras and they've exited this particular perimeter. And so this is where all the speeches will be done, and this is where the Chief Justice would swear into office the president-elect and the vice president-elect. So that will be in the middle. And if you look at the how the chairs are being arranged, so it means that we are going to have invited who are going to be seated over there, and the chairs are quite different, and they've been covered by the state protocol who are in charge of the arrangement. And we've seen people who are also ushers, so they'll be giving directions to people who would be making their way here. So aside that, we have at my extreme right, that is where the international community and heads of state who have been invited, and like I indicated earlier, we are expecting about 10 heads of state to be present for this inauguration that will happen tomorrow. So they'll be seated over there, and this is where the president-elect, the vice president-elect, together with the president, who is the outgoing president, together with the vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and other important dignitaries, including the spouse of the president and the spouse of the president-elect, amongst others. They will be in the middle, and just here, this is where will be reserved for other important personalities, including the Speaker of Parliament. This is where they will be seated. The Speaker of Parliament, leadership of Parliament, the minority leader, the deputy majority leader, the minority leader, the deputy minority leader, and the chief whip. They will also be here, including some few appointments that have been made by the president-elect. His office, they would also be here. And the rest of us who would be working here tomorrow, that is the media, we would also be having some level of access, but I understand that it will be very limited, especially for those who don't have accreditation, will not be allowed into the inner perimeter. We also understand that a section of Ghanaians who have traveled the length and breadth of the country to be here will also occupy the seats at the far end, so they will be occupying those spaces at the end. And as we speak, some of them have made their way here, and some of them are likely to pass the night here because some of them are coming from far places to observe what would transpire tomorrow. So state protocol in charge of the arrangements here, and the Ghana Police Service together with the National Security are also providing security for this all-important occasion that will happen tomorrow, 7th January 2024. Back to you in studios, Joshua.
Well, it looks like you didn't cross over last year, so please, we are in 2025 now, Hanan. But really, talk to me. Are people also finding their way into the space as we speak? Because yes, a lot of party people are excited about it, and we are told that it's on a first come, first served basis. So are you picking up signals to that effect?
Well, it is interesting to note that, Joshua, you have people who are already here, the Fix the Country group.
Well, we'll be getting back to Abdul Hanan Adam there, but the picture is painted. The grounds are ready to receive the over 10 heads of states and 2 vice presidents, as well as all the dignitaries that have been invited for the inauguration of President-elect John Dramani Mahama tomorrow at the Black Star Square. And Abdul Hanan there bringing us up to speed with all that is happening even as of now. So preparatory works, we are told, began from the 31st of December and has continued till now. So let's cross back and get that interview from Hanan.
Ralph, you're live on GHOne television. In just a few hours, we are expected to witness another political transition of power. Why are you here at this present moment?
Well, good evening to all your viewers and all Ghanaians out there. Today is a special day for every Ghanaian, and I'm not here as Fix the Country. I'm here as a Ghanaian who believes that we need to all get involved. It doesn't matter what is really happening. As far as you're a citizen, occasions like this, you should also monitor how things are going and how things are done. At least this is the beginning of how governance will start, starting with how the country right now, specifically Accra, right now you can see red, gold, green everywhere on the streets of Accra. They are sweeping everywhere. And one thing I've noticed that I think that they should have also put into consideration is putting on our street lights as well, because Accra is very dark right now. And such an occasion, I know, as we speak, there are invited guests who are arriving in the country from the airport to the Flagstaff House, driving through the 37 military to, most of the top hotels where we will be hosting some of these invited guests are all dark. And we are monitoring it. These are some of the things that, as a group, Fix the Country, and as individual, Ralph and a fellow Ghanaian, have been monitored. And I think that we should start taking charge of all these things. So I am here as a Ghanaian monitoring what is happening from the start, because this is the beginning of the governance of this government that will be coming. So I think that we should be putting certain measures in place in lightening the whole city. It was supposed to be one of the top notch, because when you look at here where the occasion will be handled, you can see lights all over, and it is very much important that we would have also lighted the whole city as well, and not only for this occasion.
Well, we'll light the entire city as Ralph is asking for, and as and when we are able to make sure that we also get sounds to that light, we'll get back to Hanan again. But this is our coverage here, and I would like to also let you know that we would also be bringing to you live the dissolution of the 8th Parliament, as well as the inauguration of the 9th Parliament. Speaker earlier at the final sitting, he indicated that the 8th Parliament will expire at midnight, which will pave way for the inauguration of the 9th Parliament. And there's been a lot of conversation surrounding that already. But away from that, or still related to parliamentary issues and the fallout from the 2024 December 7 general elections, the Electoral Commission has indefinitely suspended the collation of results from the Ablekuma North constituency, following a similar suspension for the verification of 20 polling stations. Now, to resolve the matter, the Electoral Commission summoned presiding officers from the disputed polling stations to verify the authenticity of the pink sheets submitted by the NPP. However, the exercise ended inconclusively, as NDC raised frequent objections over the use of scanned pink sheets and allegation of the NPP conniving to rig the election in favor of the NPP parliamentary candidate Efua Efriye. Obed Kingaglo has more.
The collation process for the outstanding 20 polling stations in the Ablekuma North constituency began with the assembly of some polling officials from the constituency.
I requested for time to try and verify the 20. How do I verify? I told the commission to call my members for me, my POs. So my presiding officers are here. The statement of pool and the declaration forms are here. They are going to testify whether it's their handwriting, the numbers are for them, and the signatures are for them.
The verification of the results from the 20 polling stations by the presiding officers began peacefully until confusion erupted. The NDC agent accused the Electoral Commission of starting the process without them.
This morning we are here at 11 o'clock because we had the information that the NPP are seated here because they are in bed with the EC. They are here doing the coalition. For the 20, they've called an unknown number calling POs to come and verify what?
The NDC also accused the Electoral Commission and the MPP of conniving to rig the elections in favor of the MPP parliamentary candidate Nana Owusu-Efriye.
I don't know what they want in Ablekumanov. That all commissioners at the headquarters, Mensah and Lex, they are all interested in Ablekumanov. Do they reside in Ablekumanov? Are they the ones to elect the member of parliament for us in Ablekumanov? It will never happen.
The NDC agents also warned that the process will be reversed.
I want members of the public to know what is going on in here. And I can tell you on authority, this is pure charade. And this is cantata ongoing. We will make sure we will resist it to the last of our blood.
Returning officer for the constituency, Vincent Obeng, concluded the process by referring the exercise to the Electoral Commission to finalize the 7 outstanding polling stations.
I called my presiding officers to come and authenticate. I had 12 of them who came to authenticate, and NDC also tendered in 3 pin sheets, of which 2 already the presiding officers have authenticated. So we were able to do extra 1, making 13 polling stations. So as it stands now, we are still left with 7 polling stations to be confirmed from the presiding officers. Since they are not here, I refer the work to the commission for the commission to take decision on that.
Until such a time that the Electoral Commission takes a decision on the 7 outstanding polling stations, the battle between Irabna Obeng of the NDC and Nana Owusu-Efriye of the MPP remain unresolved. Reporting for GHOne News, Obed Kingaglo. So for the people of Ablekuma North, one thing is clear: you will not have a parliamentary or a representative in the 9th Parliament inaugurated or launched by close of day today and into tomorrow, because clearly the race between Owusu-Efriye and Irabna Obeng still has more ahead of us. This is still News Tonight here on GH1 Television with me, Joshua Kodjo Mensah. We do have more for you. Stick and stay.
Now, lawyers of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, who are involved in the disputed parliamentary constituency results, have filed processes at the Supreme Court to quash orders of the High Court. Now, the application is seeking a judicial review in the nature of certiorari to nullify orders of Justice Forsen Ba Japon's decision to overrule their objection against the jurisdiction of the court to hear the mandamus and the subsequent orders to EC to collate and declare winners. Now, the application to the Supreme Court was filed on Monday, moments after the High Court in Accra was forced to adjourn hearing of the application for stay of execution to January 13. EIB Network's legal affairs correspondent Mutala Inusa has more.
Hearing of the National Democratic Congress's parliamentary candidate stay of execution motions have been forced into adjournment after it appeared to the court that the bailiffs were unable to discharge their duties. The parties involved have not been served with the processes, and in fact, this led to some delay in the calling of the case. And after subsequent calling of the case, it came to the fore that there's no proof of service and there's also no proof of non-service. So it means that the bailiffs have not performed their duties, and the managers of the bailiffs were invited by the court, and Madam Victoria Mensah indicated to the court that yes, after inquiring from these bailiffs, it came to the attention of her that they haven't been able to perform their duties, for which reason she will be issuing some query letters to them for them to respond why they were unable to perform their processes. This led to the court adjourning the case after the parties, especially the NDC side and the Electoral Commission side, agreed to come back on the 13th of January. But the Director of Legal Affairs of the NDC, Ediji Tamaklo, has this message moments after the case was adjourned.
It has to do with the fact that the applicants were not, that the mandamus applicants were not served with the stay. My law says once it's fundamental and there's no proof of service or proof of non-service. However, the Electoral Commission were in court, except to say that it was their watchman that was served on the the day the mandamus application was granted. We thought it was more between us and them, so we could proceed. But like the concerns raised by my lord is equally fundamental. So in the circumstance, we are supposed to come back on the 13th of January. But as you are aware, the Electoral Commission is currently even doing Ablekuma North or so, knowing very well that these processes, and in fact they have filed an affidavit in opposition. Why in God's name would you go ahead and be doing these others, the ones you have done already, and Ablekuma North, when you know we are in court over this matter?
In relation to whether the long adjournment will have a toll on the members of parliament elect, he said, look, they shouldn't kill themselves over the fact that swearing in is going to be done today.
We can always, the issue of swearing in is not a matter of life and death. So that can always be taken.
We understand that you have some processes also filed at the Supreme Court. What exactly are these processes?
Later we'll talk about that. Thank you.
Clearly, the numbers that we used to know are associated with these very cases have drastically reduced today. We didn't see the numbers in court today for obvious reason, because the Electoral Commission has gone ahead to make declarations in relation to these disputed constituencies following the orders of the High Court, even though the NDC side disagree. As a result of that, they have filed processes at the Supreme Court by way of a judicial review in the nature of certiorari to quash the ruling on the objection that was overruled on the 1st of January, and also the ruling of the court on the mandamus application, which was granted on the 4th of January. Until such time that the Supreme Court calls for the case and dealt with it, the orders of the High Court will still remain. From the High Court here in Accra, Mutala Inusa, GHOne.
Well, President Nana Akufo-Addo has denied granting presidential pardon to 11 Ghanaians convicted and jailed for various offences Now, this was after widely circulated internal memo suggesting the president has granted pardon considering health conditions, the length of the imprisonment, and other mitigating circumstances. William Atu-Asian, the former chief executive officer of the defunct Capital Bank, was convicted for stealing over 90 million cedis of the Bank of Ghana's liquidity support intended for the now defunct Capital Bank. Was among the list of individuals in the purported memo, but a statement signed by Director of Communications of the presidency, GHOne Ahin, said no pardon has been granted by President Akufo-Addo. Now, our legal affairs correspondent Mutala Inusa is in studio with me with a copy of the letter granting the presidential pardon. So, Mutala, really, we all saw the statement, and then the assertion was that yes, indeed, presidential pardon had been granted. Talk to me about how it is all going now.
So a few hours just before the president Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo exit office, we saw that statement that was awash on social media. So many commented, especially so also because of the kind of people who were involved in there. But first of all, let me just take you to the touch screen and then show you what exactly the provision that established presidential pardon by way of prerogative of mercy. And Article 72 of the 1992 Constitution made clear that provision gives the president the mandate, and this is what it states: that the president may, acting in the consultation with the Council of State, 1A, grant to a person convicted for an offense a pardon either free or subject to lawful condition, or grant to a person a respite either indefinite or for a specified period from the execution of punishment imposed on him for an offense, or substitute a less severe form of punishment for a punishment imposed on a person for an offense, or the final one, which is D, remit the whole or part of a punishment imposed on a person or of a penalty or forfeiture otherwise due to the government on account of any offenses. So this is what the provision that any president, in fact, who has to give presidential pardon to somebody who have been convicted and sentenced, this is what gave birth to that particular point in time. But let me take you to the statement that we saw, which actually came out with a lot of messages and all of that. And so it came out to us, and this letter that was seen today made reference to Article 72(1), which I have read a short while ago, and named some, in fact, 11 persons involved in this one. Guess these 11 persons. The first one on the list is Kwesi Al-Hassan. We are told that he was convicted of murder and sentenced to death on 19th March 1993. He has been in prison since then, so he's 31 years now, and he's now serving life imprisonment. Remember that the provision that I did mention talk about the fact that the president can give you a lesser punishment. At the time that he was convicted and sentenced, it was death penalty. Now it has been lessened to life in prison. But the names on this list that makes it very interesting has to do with number 3. And who is that number 3? William Atu-Asian. And for those who remember, Justice Eric Shea Bafo, currently a justice of the Court of Appeal, was the one that dealt with this very matter. Exactly. And I remember the amount in question that Atu-Asian was supposed to pay was 60 million, but because he agreed with the state under Section 35 of the Court Act to pay with some level of penalty, the penalty that he was supposed to pay under this one is 30 million Ghana cedi. That is why you see the amount here, 90 million Ghana cedi. Right. And he was given the opportunity to refund the money, and I can tell you countless times that we went to court, he could not really convince the court why he was unable to pay, because the court is saying that once you have agreed not to go to jail but you pay the money with that compensation, it is an obligation that you need to fulfill. You don't tell the court how you want to pay the money. The court asks you to pay the money under certain circumstances. He's saying that in fact, the court said he should pay that amount of money in 3 tranches, 30 million, and he defaulted. And this is what the supposed letter came out. We said he was convicted for his role in the collapse of Capital Bank and sentenced to pay 90 million Ghana cedis. So that is under Section 35 of the Court Act, meaning that after being sentenced, he's supposed to pay the money without going to jail. But he defaulted. after paying part of the money, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison in December 2023. And the point that the letter is referenced is that he's suffering from severe life-threatening medical conditions and has undergone multiple surgeries as a result. And so that is the reason being assigned to William Atuisin. But that is not all. In 2019, something very interesting also happened at the court. And guess who dealt with this case? Justice Efia-Sewa Saribotre, also a justice of the Court of Appeal. And it has to do with the former coordinator of GHOne, Abu Gapeli. And Abu Gapeli and businessman Philip Asibit were in court for defunct GHOne. And they said some monies were expended, they could not account for, and they were jailed. Philip Asibit has a 12 years custodial sentence and Abu Gapele 6, so both of them 16 years. Now, fast forward, number 6, the letter points to the fact that he was sentenced to 12 years in prison in 2018 for willfully causing financial loss to the state related to his role at the National Youth Employment Program. And at that particular point in time, it was GHOne. He has served 6 years in prison and he has pleaded to be released on the grounds of ill health. So if you look at the list and all the people who made the list, the condition is that ill health, ill health, ill health. And social media moment after this was received a lot of reactions. Then moments later, there came a reaction from the presidency. And let's see what the presidency has been saying in relation to that list that we saw, that I have just mentioned some of them to you. And this is coming from the Communication Directorate, Jubilee House, Accra, and for immediate release. And it's dated 6th January 2025. No presidential pardon granted. Quite interesting there. And the content of it, I read to you. The attention of the office of the president has been drawn to reports circulating in sections of the media suggesting that the president of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has granted a presidential pardon to certain individuals. Quite interesting. And it went on to say, we wish to categorically state that these assertions are inaccurate. And Joshua, something very interesting in there. It's not saying these assertions are false. It is saying inaccurate. That means there's some level of truth in that particular letter that we are talking about. And then they went on to say that, and no pardon has been granted by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So the public is kindly urged to disregard any contrary information and rely on official communication from the office of the president. So that is what I can tell you now in relation to that letter that we saw, suggesting that the president has granted some presidential pardon to some 11 people, and notable among them is William Atuisin, former CEO or founder of Capital Bank, and of course Philip Asibit, once upon a time businessman who took part in GHOne activities. But the president is saying that that particular information is not entirely accurate. But there's no smoke without fire.
And Murtala, and that's where people are conflicted. In fact, I am also conflicted on this development, Murtala, because I mean, we see from the statement from GHOne that clearly no presidential pardon has been awarded by the president, but did not tell us then what the statement earlier we saw sought to do, because that statement earlier was signed on the 31st of December 2024, and it was signed by Ko Abaka Isuman, who is the acting secretary to the president and legal counsel to the president, and addressed to the chairperson of the Council of State, Nana Otu-Siribwa II. So tell us that, oh yes, we wrote. So I feel it is very empty, the statement from GHOne, because it does not. It doesn't tell us anything.
I agree with you.
So is it the case that the presidency wrote to the Council of State, but Council of State said, well, President, we advise against it? For which reason they are drawing this conclusion? I mean, we need better particulars from
what is clear, Per, the statement that was brought to clarify the issue is that they are not denying the fact that there has been some consideration of presidential pardon to certain people. But what they are saying, that probably this is not the official list that probably they will be giving presidential
pardon. Next time they should put all the details.
Like I said, there's no smoke with that fire, because once there is a president that's about to leave office, the issue about presidential pardon is one of the things that every president always when had the opportunity he will do before leaving office.
Murtala, thank you so much. Murtala, our legal affairs correspondent, bringing us some updates on that situation there. Well, outgoing Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has pledged a 200,000 cedi support for traders affected by the recent fire outbreak at the Kantamanto market. Now, Dr. Bawumia, who visited the traders on Monday, also assured the affected traders of government commitment to their well-being and that government will put in place measures to prevent a recurrence of such incidents.
But the right course at the buy. But my baby who said, Ijuma Shia and ama miniachi aje kakra enti mwa yeso yebabua na market hi asidio na mwaye yesi market yesu ria ye wade a mepese yeye ema Kantamanto fuo. First no, internal security waha is a very important pointer. We have to make sure say your internal security. The Tosumi, as part of the security, the person made cameras ever to Kantamanto. Yedi cement beba, yedi roofing sheets beba, but another the person made 200,000. Ejamo na nobody but ye jaimo. If the free a buy more, but then jaimo. You may also say, "Aye, Juma,
So Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia with the promises there for the victims of the Kantamanto fire. Well, the Ghana National Fire Service has cautioned Kantamanto traders from reconstructing stalls without proper consultation from the service to prevent future occurrence. Now, the inferno that engulfed about 7,000 stalls at Kantamanto on Wednesday, January 1, 2025, also caused the life of a 38-year-old man, according to the service. Now, here is the Greater Accra Regional Fire Officer, ACFO Rashid Nisau, with excerpts of the yet-to-be-finalized report on the market fire.
It will interest you to know that this fire was reported by a 12-year-old boy, name withheld, at 01:18 hours at the Metro Fire Station. This is not to say that this operation was without challenges. Lack of accessibility for maneuverability of firefighting appliances was an issue. LPG cylinders and other flammables in the market led to explosions and exacerbated the situation. Over 90% of the structures in the market were wooden structures that accounted for the rapid spread and extensive damage. There is no fire hydrant at Kantamanto Market. The only nearby hydrants located at the GCB Bank and the Central Police MTTD was not flowing and had low pressure respectively. Poor housekeeping within the market contributed and made firefighting difficult. Interference of some members of the public during firefighting effort posed a distraction to firefighters. The market authorities should consult Fire Service Greater Accra Region for professional advice before constructing the market. We were not consulted. We were not consulted, and they started their construction. And that is why I am holding this press conference and calling on them to come for advice, for technical advice on the type of materials to use. Because every material has its fire resistant levels. So that they should approach us and we would tell them which materials to use. Adequate access routes should be created in the market to help the fire appliances maneuver in the market in times of emergency. Formation of fire wardens in the market should be treated as a matter of agency. Market authorities should liaise with the fire service to establish a fire post at the Kantamanto market. Unfortunately, a 38-year-old man, whose name withheld, has passed on as a result of severe injuries suffered. Cause of fire, ladies and gentlemen of the press, the cause of fire is still under investigations.
Well, so that will be it for news tonight, but stick and stay with us because we are also now going to bring you coverage of the inauguration of the 9th Parliament. And clearly, Speaker, you heard from Speaker earlier talking about the fact that, well, the 8th Parliament officially expires at midnight and then it will be followed by the inauguration of the 9th Parliament, where we are seeing majority seats taken by the NDC. As it stands now, at least 183 seats for the NDC in the 9th Parliament, about 88 for the NPP, and 4 independent candidates making their way to the 9th Parliament. Unfortunately, we have some constituencies where there are issues. For instance, Ablekuma North, as you heard earlier, we are still not clear as to who really gets to represent them in the 9th Parliament. And so, stick and stay with us. We'll have more for you in terms of production for that. We are stationed also at Parliament. We have a team at Parliament that will be bringing you reactions from some new entrants to the 9th Parliament, as well as reactions from those who will be moving from the 8th Parliament to the 9th Parliament. But let's leave you here shortly with the inauguration of the 8th Parliament and how all of that went. All the drama, all the episodes that we saw in there.
Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagu, do in the name of the Almighty God swear. Do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana.
We're going to have a president and a speaker for another party, and how they're going to work together. You know, this is a way that demonstrates that democracy.
But you are not the leader of the speaker. At least I have a position in Ghana. Number 3. What is your number?
Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin is about to wrap up his speakership role. He holds the prestigious number 3 position in Ghana's hierarchy of power. But how did this happen? Especially after the NDC lost the presidential election.
The victory of the NDC is coming again, and the people say,
For the first time in the history of Ghana, the Speaker of Parliament is not from the ruling party. The 8th Parliament had MPs from both the NPP and the NDC evenly tied, without a clear majority. The night of January 6, 2021 will go down in history. Inside this iconic building, as a nation slept, political maneuvers were in full swing. The opposition NDC had lost the presidential race, but they were far from conceding defeat in Parliament. They smelled an opportunity, and they would fight tooth and nail for influence. But who was the architect behind the Elect Speaker Bagbin project?
If I can remember when the discussion started zeroing in to us picking one of us and working for that one person to become the speaker, I think I first heard that idea from Honorable Muntaka Babara. I mean, and he was so certain, so confident about the possibility of us getting one of us to be speaker.
I believe that it was divine. I managed to get the first meeting, which was at the office of the our current flag bearer, former President Mahama, which was chaired by President Mahama himself. And I remember vividly in that meeting, we were reminded of what happened in 2005 when we tried to support Peter Aditi and then it failed, and we got punished by refusing to give out the second deputy speaker. So it came up, and I said that, look, one, I'm very convinced that this time it's going to be different.
His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, understand, was very emphatic about the need for all of us to support him. And when later he met all of us as a caucus, he means no words about the need for the party to strongly, campaign behind Alban Sumana.
Nurturing the idea made him restless and sleepless.
Believe me, we tried, turning the thing from all angle. I get thinking, what if this happened? What if that happened? What if this? And turn it round and round and round and round. I can tell you that I rehearsed the process more than 200 times.
The opposition NDC's plan was broken into 4 pillars. 1, arrive early and take the majority side.
1 was to sit on the right side of speaker, so that we portray ourselves as majority, since we have equal numbers. Someone will say, then how useful it is. It was useful to unsettle our colleagues on the other side.
We've heard people talk about who is sitting on the majority side, who is sitting. It all doesn't matter. Parliament is only a polling station tonight for the purposes of electing a speaker, who will then proceed to swear in members of parliament. And then if the appetite is there to elect the deputy speakers tonight, we may choose to do so as well. Therefore, tonight, in our estimation, who sits on the left, who sits on the right is inconsequential.
The NPP was having a party. They were having champagne and grilled pork at the poolside in Alisa. And the decision had been taken that our team would move around 10 p.m. And so we decided to beat them to it. And so information was sent to Muntaka, who was at Marriott, and he immediately mobilized, and at 8:30 our team arrived here. And so by the time they were entering their rooms, some of them have drunk from the champagne that they were drinking. They saw on their TV screens that we had taken over the majority side of the house.
That is the boisterous Sam George. He was an integral part of the plan. Arriving early and taking the majority side of the chamber, dressed in white, symbolizing victory, had worked perfectly. When the NPP side arrived later, clad in their colorful kente and formal suits, it was already too late. Katie Hammond, MP for Adansia Sokwa, was upset. But indeed, it was game over. That was followed by more drama. The NDC had set the tone, and they weren't backing down. Esla Owusu-Ekofo, MP for Ablekuma West, from the NPP, sits defiantly on the laps of Mensah Kando, NDC MP for Dwabuso. As both sides escalated their claims over seating positions, a mix of gasps and laughter ripples through the chamber, highlighting the absurdity of the situation. It looked ludicrous, but it was all part of the plan. The second plan was entirely left to Muntaka.
Now I've scanned 20 plus. I started talking to them. Some, you see their body language, they are not very sure whether this will be successful. They are not happy about their party, they are not happy about the president, they have their reservations, but they are hardcore MPP and they don't think this project will work. I remember one of my colleagues, when I was to meet him, we had to meet at the Atimota lorry station around almost 2 a.m. He couldn't even trust to sit in my car. So he said I should leave my phones in my car. He leaves his, and we just sat on one of the what do you call it, these slabs that they have there, concrete slabs. Because one, he doesn't want to be recorded, any possibility of being recorded and all that. And he gave me his word that, look, Montaka, I think this is a very useful project. There were others, I had to meet at in a shopping mall because the person could not trust that we can meet without anybody seeing us. At the end of the day, I could count convincingly on about 6 members from the MPP side.
Amid the confusion, an injunction was hanging over the head of Asin North MP James GHOne, whose dual citizenship status was unresolved. Yet, the NDC smuggled him into the chamber.
The marshals of Parliament had gotten instructions to prevent him from entering. Again, that was a very smooth operation through the tunnels. I've had to apologize a number of times to the marshal and his deputy for the incident that happened in the tunnel of Parliament's chambers. But bottom line is the chamber is for MPs, it's not for the marshal. And so we got into the chamber and Kwesi was put right in the heart of the chamber, and then the votes happened.
Kodjo Nkrumah, the Member of Parliament for Ofuasia Yeribi, was cocksure that GHOne would not vote that day.
Because tonight, if you read the rules, the business is simple. The Clerk of Parliament after midnight will announce that these are MPs elect, the 8th Parliament is about to commence, we don't have a speaker, may I receive nominations? When those nominations are made available, we will then go into a vote. Now that vote, like every other vote at every other polling station, you don't show up and say, I want to vote. What is going to happen is that they are going to call the roll of MPs elect as has been provided by the Electoral Commission. And if indeed the clerk has been served by the ruling of the court, then it means that Parliament is injuncted from calling a particular name from a particular constituency.
The NDC had anticipated that already. They prepared their argument.
I urge you, Mr. Clerk, Chairman, that you allow the Honorable elected MP to participate in the proceedings, and your limited job of allowing us to elect a speaker, let that happen. Afterwards, we then get sworn in by the speaker. We then become members of Parliament, and within the context of being members of Parliament, service on us can be sent through you. But as it is now, we are not members of Parliament. If we have an issue with the court, let the court find us individually and serve us.
The Honorable GHOne has not been served in the process. He is going through lawful process, having been elected, and Parliament hasn't been notified. What I stated is that the courts are only called upon to resolve disputes and conflict relating to a member of Parliament. He is duly elected and has not been served any purpose.
GHOne's vote was just one, but it was very much needed in the election of Speaker back then.
We knew that they could possibly try to come and take GHOne out forcefully. So that was where we rehearsed, and I told them that any time, whether a police or a group of police or military try to come into a chamber to take GHOne, we should swarm the place and not allow them to take him out. Then that rehearsal that we did rather worked on me, because when I was coming to stubborn, they were sending the police and the military to come and take me out. But because we had already rehearsed how to prevent GHOne from being taken out, it rather saved me, and they came and swarmed me and surrounded me and then made it impossible for the military to take me out.
There was that risk, and at the time in the media, it was said that he was not qualified to hold himself up as a member of Parliament. And yet, he still went ahead knowing that he could be prosecuted for, doing that because of the spirit that was in the caucus. He had no fear of anything. He thought that he had the right comradeship and the right support. And so he decided to do it. And he was encouraged to do it because the caucus was not going to abandon him. And thank God, the caucus really stood with him.
Mr. Chair, just for the records, so that we are all satisfied, that you as a recipient of the court process cannot have the proof of service. It is held by
make sure all NDC MPs voted for Bagbin. As the election of the Speaker started, the Chief Whip disrupted the voting process twice, and this is why.
There were a couple of times that he personally snatched the ballot box and voting had to start all over again. He did that just so he could make it comfortable for the other side. So every time voting started, and then the other side instituted a measure that the people who were working with on their side felt uncomfortable with and thought it will expose them, they gave a hint. And based on that, he would disrupt the process for it to start again.
The only way to do that was to serve as the agent, because I knew they were going to insist on showing the vote. So you realize when the thing started not to allow them to show the vote. So we will not, and they must know also.
They made the call to have a military come in, and the soldiers were acting under orders, and that's why they came in. But we made it known to them that, and that day I said to the soldiers on the floor, when the NDC comes to office, we have their names, we have their faces. Every one of them is going to be charged for high treason.
It looked unplanned. They were going by the playbook.
If you watch the videos, you would see John Jinapo head straight for the booth, the mace of Parliament. I mean, there were specific roles assigned to specific people, so that even though it appeared chaotic, it was organized chaos.
As the hours wore on, it was clear the NDC had schemed well. They weren't just going to hold their ground. They were aiming to take the Speaker's chair, and nothing would stop them. It was a delicate game of numbers and influence. MPs lined up to vote for the Speaker, but the air was thick with uncertainty. Will the NPP be able to maintain its grip on power, or will the NDC pull off the unthinkable? The counting process dragged, and the Chief Whip gave a victory sign. But hold on, MP for Tema West, Carlos Ahenkra, engages Oseichi Mensah, the former majority leader, grabs the ballot papers in a last-ditch effort and makes a run for the door.
You see, the way he tried to put the ballot paper in his mouth, I didn't know what else could I do to get the papers out of his mouth. I want to hit him from the head, so that at least when he feels so much pain, he will open his mouth and the thing will drop, and I'll collect my ballot papers, which obviously he did. Nobody sought us to sort us out. I mean, we sorted ourselves as boys or men. Said, oh, my brother, you didn't do well, but I'm sorry I hit you.
I've watched that video a number of times, and it took him about 3 seconds to cross from our end and jump over tables and chairs and get there. And I think the first two slaps are very beautiful. I think one made colors here, ding dong merrily, and the second one it just spun him around. It was like jingle bells, jingle all the way. And Yusuf was just fantastic on that day.
A mix of celebration and shock ripples through the room as the opposition NDC pulls off the unthinkable. Alban Bagbin is declared Speaker of Parliament. But has the Bagbin speakership helped the country?
Whatever is bad today, that is perpetrated by this government, could have been worse if we didn't have the kind of speaker that we have and the kind of parliament that we have. They would have, without hesitation and without fear of anything, passed worse laws, approved worse loans, and made our economic situation even worse. In fact, they would have approved worse taxes. But when you look back, I mean, even e-levy. ended on an anticlimax note. The people of Ghana, in future, when they are assessing it, will not miss the fact that for 1 year, this parliament, with this speaker, prevented the government from implementing that draconian, and we still believe, illegal levy.
You have an executive led by Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo that is bullish, that is very brutish as well, and very vindictive. They have no cares about any other person apart from what their desires are. You have a judiciary that is literally pliant and subservient to the executive, the whims and caprices of the executive. And so if you had a legislature that was equally rubber stamped, trust me, the frustration levels in the country would have gotten to a tipping point.
NDC is winning the election, or when we win the election, we should come with a very, very comfortable majority.
If you don't have an NDC supermajority, it's gonna slow down the recovery process. It's gonna slow down the healing of this country. And so basically GHOne is going to be an emergency room surgeon. The country is bleeding. Now imagine what a power of good would be in the hands of John Mahama if he had 155 MPs in reversing all of these things that have been done to hurt the Ghanaian people. The NDC doesn't have a solid majority. The NPP is going to use his MPs to shield the thieves in government today, who we need to recover the money from. People who were neck deep in the graft and theft that is called the National Cathedral, who need to account for it. You need to have Parliament lead that charge.